Yes.
Maybe one day. Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Labor and Delivery.
Dude, that'd be insane.
And welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football, where we like cold intros or live intros and really no warning that we're actually about to start a show. I am your host at Hot BFF with two P's, coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri, joined by Dan Thury BFF with two F's, up there in Springfield. Dan, how are you?
It's been a long day. I've already had a beer. I had a pre-show beer. I now have a on-show beer, and at some point I will have a mid-show beer because retail life during this pandemic time, it's been stressful.
Completely understand that. Dan, actually, you've done the chasing down on this one, and I know you're super excited about this. I'm going to go ahead and let you do the honors of guest intro, also because I feel super lazy today.
That's fine. Today we got on, he's been, like, he just grinds it out. Data guy, film guy, that he gets on all the shows, super cool. I've interacted with him a few times. He actually just put out a podcast with our guests from last week, Chris Allen, that got me super excited to get him in here. Today we have Jesse Reeves at Jesse Reeves FF. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys reaching out and getting me on here.
We're super happy to have you.
Yeah, exactly, man. You got anything you want to plug before we get into a potential 2-hour long shit show? The spot's yours. Whatever you want to say, man. Plug your work, plug yourself, plug your life. It doesn't matter. The floor is yours.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, you guys pretty much already said it. You guys can find me on Twitter at Jesse Reeves FF. All of my written content over at Roto, Underworld, or playerprofiler.com. And yeah, currently co-host of a podcast called The Draft Dialogue. Break down rookie profiles coming into this 2020 class, individual podcast form, so about 10 to 15 minute episodes. Max, got about 50 of them up on pretty much, I think, every single platform, known, Stitcher, Spotify, all that good stuff. You guys can check that out. Also YouTube. And I'm joined by my really great co-host, Matt Gujeski, on that venture there. So if you guys are looking for a little bit of audio after today in terms of, you know, some of the stuff we might cover in this podcast today, you guys can find some of my work there. And yeah, that's pretty much it right now. Just kind of coasting through, waiting till this draft. I think we're like 2 weeks out or something like that. So I'm excited to get on, chop it up with you guys, talk some fantasy football, some rookies, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Again, we're excited to have you. If you haven't checked out Jesse's work, make sure that you do that. And Player Profiler, by the way, if you think that Dan and I say smart things sometimes, 90% of it comes from there. So there you go.
Yeah, I basically live on that website.
We do.
I have sort of a man crush on Matt Kelly, so I tend to talk him up a bunch on the show, which he doesn't need at all because the guy gets a lot of love to begin with. But yeah, I pretty much live on Player Profiler.
It's a great resource. Free data. You can hop on there, get any information you need, points per game, all that good stuff. It's advanced stuff, and articles really well written. So glad you guys enjoy the stuff over there. It's a great spot.
Absolutely. All right, before we get into the news and we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, where we're going to do another 12-pack of questions and talk some rookies, let's go ahead and talk about what Dan and I are drinking.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, go ahead and start with you. What do you got for today?
So before we start off with our beers, we have a listener question. We got Dylan. Drops a lot of these all the time. We absolutely love when he gets on here. His question is, what are the chances Damian Williams survives the NFL draft as the lead back of the Chiefs?
Okay, I'm glad he quantified. I was like, in general, I hope pretty good. But as far as
We don't want him to die, so that's a good thing.
Is the lead back of the Chiefs 30-40% maybe? They're not going to roll with just him and Darwin Thompson. So I'd imagine they're drafting someone. What capital they spend remains to be seen. We saw last year that especially when McCoy was active, that they will give some touches to other backs, even though Williams will be involved. So I don't think he's going to be completely tanked. But as far as a lead back, if you will, but I've always been of that opinion about Damian Williams.
Yeah, I've always been the higher one on the show. I think it's about 60 to 65%. I mean, they gave him a contract extension after their Super Bowl run. I think it was plugged that they wanted to take Travis Etienne from Clemson. That's who they wanted. Like, and this is all speculation. I may be completely off with him going back to school. It doesn't mean they won't spend a day 2 pick on another running back. It could happen. I just think after David Williams' run, they have other needs on both sides of the ball potentially. I think Damian Williams actually survives. He survived free agency. I think he actually survives. He survives the draft. You got any thoughts on this, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were kind of asking the same question last year, right? After he had that really, really crazy playoff run for the Chiefs, and everybody was kind of wondering. And then Darwin Thompson became a preseason darling. And sure enough, we just see Damian Williams kind of continue to just kind of stay there. So, yeah, I think he survives. Do I think we kind of get the same fantasy output from him, or in terms of just general workload? Yeah, and he'll have some usable weeks. I mean, down the stretch, he had, week 16, 17, and then into their Super Bowl run, he had some monster games. I firmly believe he probably should have been in contention for the Super Bowl MVP. He put on a really, really great second half performance, and he kind of willed them back into existence. Even if you don't really agree with the run game being a component of a winning team, which I'm somebody who doesn't, he still put on a show, and he definitely made some really great plays in that Super Bowl. So for me, I think he has the capacity to roughly handle about a little bit over 50% of the opportunity share last year, which rated about 28th per running back in the league. So I think he can. It's just going to come down to, and I say this for every running back, it kind of doesn't matter who you are. If a team invests in the running back position early, the chances of them giving them opportunity is going to be very high. You see Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, these guys being drafted in the first rounds, like very, very early. They're going to be the bell cows. Teams don't spend that draft capital and not invest in that position for them not to be. So it's going to be telling kind of what they do in the draft. If it's anywhere, a day 3 guy, I'm probably not concerned with Damian Williams. He's probably going to step in as that lead back role, and like I said, he's a contributor. He'll have his usable weeks. And that's kind of where I land. I'm not jumping to get this guy in any dynasty leagues or leagues in general, but he can survive. He has once before, and I think he's a safe bet to do it again, depending on what the Chiefs, how they invest in that position. But we've also, I will, go on the other side of that. We've seen a lot of different running backs thrive in that Andy Reid system. So it could be anybody. Damian Williams just happens to be that guy.
He might just be the dynasty cock. Like, he just might be be the NFL cockroach if he survives his second year.
You went a different way with that than I was gonna go. I think Frank Gore's like the NFL cockroach because he survives everything.
Yeah,
that's fair. But we like Frank Gore. Most people don't like Damian Williams.
Most people don't like cockroaches either. I was gonna go out the Aretha Franklin because of the "I will survive" thing, but
that's fair.
You heard it here first. Beerfield Fantasy, not a fan of cockroaches.
Not a fan of cockroaches. We have one more question.
Sweet.
This came in. This is a fun one. What's the over/under on how many games we have this season?
On how many what? Oh, how many games?
How many games we have this season in the 2020?
17. I mean,
yeah, I don't give me the over on whatever it is.
Yeah,
I'll take the over. They're gonna run a full season. It's just gonna be very. It's going to be very constricted in terms of how much time and effort they invest in the off-season programs. That's what it's going to come down to.
Right, but growth rates are starting to slow and have been over the last 3 or 4 days now. So I don't think the NFL regular season is necessarily in danger. And Goodell has shown throughout the draft process that he's just going to be stubborn and not delay anything, even if it might be the right call. So There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Exactly.
pretty sure
Okay.
they're drafting on sleeper this year.
Right. All right. So those are the questions. We'll get to the beer preview. I am drinking Little Beaver's Pretty Fly. It is I want to say it's just a regular New England style IPA that's got white chocolate in it. It's been interesting the few sips I've had. So I'll give you guys my thoughts later on.
All right, and from Pipeworks Brewing, I am drinking all the golden tickets, and I just took that can out upside down, so there's no beer all over my desk. I am drinking all the golden tickets. It's a porter style ale, chocolate malt, cocoa nibs. We'll let you know what I think here in a little bit. Yep, definitely just spilled beer all over my desk. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get into the news.
News.
I'm going to try to host a show and clean up beer with notebook paper. The NFL is going to complete a mock draft dry run with all 32 teams to familiarize executives with how the virtual draft will be run. No word yet on if they're going to be using Sleeper to perform that mock draft, but they're doing a mock draft. There's no real analysis needed there. I just find it amusing that the NFL is turning into fantasy football this year.
It's going to be like Madden all over again.
Right. In housekeeping news, DeAndre Hopkins' trade and Todd Gurley signings are not yet official. Neither player's yet passed a physical. Rumor has it healthcare professionals are busy with other things.
Rumor.
So, the Rams and Chargers are both going to be featured on Hard Knocks this year, if you're into that sort of thing, which I tend to enjoy it. Can't wait to see Cooper Kupp on Hard Knocks. I'll be watching it in the bedroom every night with my door closed.
I just want to interject. I want to interject here. This is the biggest load of bullshit that I've ever seen in my life for them to combine Hard Knocks. Like, just give it to the Chargers, man. Just
Right.
give it to us. What are you waiting for? We just saw the Rams a couple of years ago. I don't know what they're trying to concoct with this, what HBO ratings think they need, or what the city of LA needs, but just give it to the Chargers, man. Let us have something. Let us just have something. Like, we don't get much. Like, let us have the spotlight for once. Like, it's ridiculous. When I saw this morning, I put down my phone, I threw my phone, and I was like, this is the biggest load of shit that I've ever seen in my life. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I get it. I get what they're trying to do, but it's like, as a Chargers fan, as a Chargers diehard fan through and through, it's like, come on, man, just give it to us. Let us have it, and let the Rams do whatever they're doing. I don't care what they're doing, but just let us have it.
So, okay, screw Stan Kroenke. Anytime the Rams come up, I have to go there. But HBO was smart about this because they realized the people do not have enough Cooper Kupp in their life. They're going to bring more Cooper Kupp to the people. And really, what more could anybody ask for than more Cooper Kupp?
I think it's because they want to draw in more female fans and just put Sean McVay right back on TV.
Very well could be. In the overall grand scheme of things, it's definitely a ploy for them to fill more seats in LA. I mean, that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down
You're
to.
telling me
that's
Hunter.
Like the most.
You're telling me Hunter Henry isn't for the ladies?
Oh, he is. Have you seen that stud? Wait. You're burying the lead here, man. The true chick magnet is 97 Joey Bosa.
It's gonna be Bosa.
It is Bosa.
That's the moose, my friend. It's Bosa. That guy's a stud. So if you're driving for a more female oriented audience, then yeah, you're plastering Joey Bosa everywhere, and that's we'll call it a day.
So what's the over-under of Joey Bosa shirtless shots during the 4 weeks of Hard Knocks we get?
30.5.
Well, you're already cutting it in half, though. You got to give half the time to the Rams, which they don't deserve right now. So unfortunately, we don't get as much shirtless Joey Bosa as we deserve, and so I'll set the over at 10. I'll set the over under at 10. Okay, unfortunately, because it would probably be around 25 to 30. if we have the show to ourselves, which we rightfully deserve. But.
All right, I'm just going to lay it out there, and we can both agree on this. With both shirtless Joey Bosa and Cooper Kupp, that thing should be straight to Pornhub.
Yeah, that's Pornhub Premium for the free.
It's free right now, too.
Give them what they want.
Stay home.
Let's do it.
Shout out Pornhub, not an official sponsor. All right. Kendrick Bourne re-signed a 1-year, $3.25 million deal with the 49ers. Not nearly as sexy as a shirtless Joey Bosa, but he'll steal some touchdowns and piss some people off. Rams GM Les Snead said the offense wants to utilize more than one workhorse back this year. So, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we look, it wasn't ever just going to be Darrell Henderson. So watch what they do is basically what that means. If somebody lands there, then there's a chance that they have value running back wise. So watch what they do. That's all. Kevin Stefanski reports Jarvis Landry's on track for recovery from hip surgery. This is a 6 to 8 month recovery time frame for an operation performed in February. So we thought that this operation was done a little bit late, and the long end of that time frame puts him, a month into the season before he's ready to go. So good news, he's progressing. It's definitely one of the more high profile injuries to monitor for redraft. Chiefs signed NASCAR to a 1-year contract, Ricky Seals-Jones, so he'll back up Kelsey. Yay. Look, show favorite. Had to do it. GM Ryan Pace said there's going to be an open competition at quarterback between Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky, and at this point, as a Bears fan, I kind of just wish they'd do the whole, thing they did when Parkey missed the field goal and bring all the drunks out to Goose Island and have them try a 43-yarder. I think they got a better chance at finding a starting quarterback that way.
They're going to put this on pay-per-view and be like, good luck, guys.
Absolutely.
I feel bad. I feel bad for Bears fans. My God.
I feel bad for myself as a Bears fan.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, Jesse, since you're here, thoughts on Foles and Trubisky? Oof. That's all you needed to say.
I have a hard time. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky he's not the answer. I think we've seen that for the past few years now. He's definitely not worthy of that second overall pick from a couple years ago. The thing that I have the issue with most is that Chicago went and sought out Nick Foles and his massive contract, and Cam Newton and Jameis Winston are still kind of on the market right now. I mean, not kind of, they are on the market right now. And I think Cam Newton especially would probably be able to drive that offense way better than either Foles or Trubisky. But even if you wanted to just give Jameis Winston, Mr. 30 for 30, if you wanted to give him just a 1-year, kind of prove it deal, and just him sling the rock around to see where he takes that offense, see where he can take the team, it just blows my mind that Nick Foles keeps getting these kind of these hall passes on these teams. I know he won a Super Bowl. I know back in 2014 he tied the single game touchdown record with 7 touchdowns against the Raiders. I know he's got some of these accolades, but he is not a guy that I want to put my franchise behind, and he's definitely not a guy that I want to pit against Mitchell Trubisky to tell me Mitchell Trubisky is bad or good. If you're going to have an open competition, put Trubisky up against somebody that might be a little bit different in the way that they're going to run the offense. See what you can kind of scheme up for 2 completely different guys and where your personnel kind of stands. So I think it's good that that early in the process of Mitchell Trubisky's years and in his career that they're evaluating whether or not he's going to be a quarterback. If you would have watched, some of his tape in college or just look at his overall statistics, you probably know that he's never been the answer, not worthy of number 2. But I just think it's kind of weird that they would have bypassed guys like Cam Newton, Jameis Winston for a guy like Nick Foles, and then to put the massive contract on top of that as well. Yeah. It just kind of boggles my mind.
Thankfully, they did restructure that to make it less of a cap hit, but still, I was completely on the Jameis Winston to the Bears bandwagon. I made a call for that when well, when the Bucs traded for Brady, and I knew Winston was going to be not in Tampa, that the Bears should bring him in and let him compete. So completely on board with that. Or if anything, what, you couldn't give the Rams a 4th rounder for Blake Bortles? That's all. The Chiefs restructured Sammy Watkins' contract to create $5 million in savings for the team. They were down to literally $177 in cap space. So Watkins somehow, by the way, is still just 26 years old after being in the league for 12 years. So I'm not sure how that works.
And he'll play about 7 games and then be right back on the will he or won't he play this week.
Tua Tagovailoa underwent a medical recheck on his hip facilitated at the NFL Combine. Results were overwhelmingly positive there. We'll have more on Tua, I'm sure, here in just a sec, so let's spare the commentary there for now. And the Bucs have re-signed Blaine Gabbert to a 1-year contract, stealing him from also participating in the Bears' mediocre quarterback competition.
Darn. What could have been?
All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
Pick your 6.
All right, 6 questions from Dan, 6 questions from me. After 5 to 6 hours of this content over the last 2 shows, you probably know how this goes by now. We'll start off with Dan. He's asking the serious questions. I'm asking the more, we always say, life-based or fun questions because it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
So, Dan, let's go ahead and get it rolling.
Yeah, so a lot of shows out there, including ours for, how many years have we've done this now? 4 years now. We love to talk about the rookies. What we generally don't talk about is the behind the scenes in our evaluation process. A lot of times it gets put to the wayside or it gets just mentioned in off comments. So what I want to know is, what do you look for when you're evaluating quarterbacks? And what are the traits in quarterbacks that just make you fall in love with them?
Yeah, so anytime I'm evaluating, and this kind of goes for any position for me, anytime I'm starting to evaluate a player or a group of players, I'm always I start with the numbers. The numbers are always the foundation for my analysis. So looking at quarterbacks in particular, I always start with accuracy. What is their completion percentage? Their completion percentage over expected, their average yards per pass attempt, passer rating, things of that nature. I love passer rating and QB rating because they kind of give you the entire scope, and you can kind of sift through those on any website and kind of gather your own thoughts on that. But they grab the whole scope of interceptions, yards lost. Some incorporate sacks. I believe that's quarterback rating incorporates sacks. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But I'm always looking for accuracy. The job of a quarterback is to throw the ball, and that's been proven to be the most efficient and let's just leave it at efficient. That's the most efficient way for you to move the ball in the NFL. Running is obsolete on big yardage and looking for big yardage gains when you're on your own side of the field. The fastest way for you to get from one end to the other is by throwing the ball. And to do that, you need to have a quarterback and surrounding talent that can facilitate that. So when I'm looking at a quarterback, my biggest probably piece of data is I'm constantly looking at accuracy. That's something that also I think you can work on mechanics in the NFL, but if and this might go a little bit deeper than maybe what you were asking, but I think accuracy is something that's not really taught. I think accuracy is something that you work on from when you start playing the game, and it develops over time. And when you do develop that really truly elite accuracy, I think that comes from years and years and years and years. So when we see guys that aren't accurate in college and they have a 60% completion percentage and they're throwing a lot of picks, they're not going to shake that once they get to the NFL. It's just not going to happen. If he's having brain farts in college, they're not going to get any easier in the NFL. So I'm constantly looking at accuracy for the quarterback position. And as far as traits, I think that pretty much kind of falls in line with that. I'm looking for guys who can throw the ball at all levels of the field. I'm looking for guys who have that really incredible accuracy. But I'm also looking at over the past 4 to 5 years that the game in the NFL is changing. We're seeing a lot of college schemes and formations and personnel groups kind of seep into the NFL now. We're getting to a more wide open, spread out game where it's moving faster than it was 10 to 15 years ago. So I want a quarterback who's going to be able to be mobile, but not just maybe not just a runner though. A guy who's going to be able to shake the pocket, keep his eyes down the field, use that accuracy. A guy that can throw on the run. There's really a plethora, a giant bag of things that you really want to look for in the quarterback position, but mostly a guy that can just really dot up and down the field at all levels and does it with ease is something that really makes me fall in love with a quarterback. I love Lamar Jackson. I love guys like Deshaun Watson who can really put the wheels on and get you a 15-yard first down. Gain if if you're backed up on third and they get in some hot water or second. And I love guys that can do that. But for me, the true beauty in the art of being a quarterback really comes from being able to put the ball where you want it and to be able to do it consistently.
A fantastic answer, Chris. You have anything else you want to add? I mean, that's just
no.
There's a lot to take in.
No,
I love it.
No, he kind of just validated what I had switched my process to this year. So we had done, and we've made light of this a few times. We the last 3 years did just pound film for 130 guys with no real statistical evaluation. So this year, I used statistical evaluation as the basis for who I was even going to watch film on. And, for there, I looked at everything. So I took a baseline approach, basically, and I took the last 10 years worth of draft classes, essentially, categorized each player into starter, backup, journeyman, bust, just a guy, and then looked at what they did in college and looked for where that drop-off was in stats. And I want to see a guy check probably about 60% of those boxes before I even get to film evaluation. And that's going to be things like completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions under a certain threshold, games started, pass attempts, yards per completion, or yards per attempt. And, I either want to see them check boxes for that, or, you got some guys that have had success, less so at the quarterback position off of one huge year, but I need that to be like that much better. So I started using that as kind of a baseline. And then what I really like to see on film that makes me fall in love with people, I like mobility, but I like in-pocket mobility. I like that sense for pressure. I like seeing a quarterback that knows when to step up, that knows when to roll out, that knows when to take off and scramble, can keep their eyes downfield on the move, has good accuracy on the run. Patrick Mahomes is the first one that comes to mind from, watching his college tape in year one. We got some of that out of Gardner Minshew last year, which had me on him as a late round pick. I like to see the athleticism, the guys that can take off, but also the guys that seem to have a sense for it, to get through their reads, to find the open receiver, to know when pressure's there, and to be able to react to that. And if I can see that really jump off of film, that's typically what makes me fall in love with a guy, is just that ability to react to what's going on the field and, kind of be able to see it and react to it. Situational awareness, if you will.
Yeah, like for me, for those out there that have known, I have fallen pretty off the film bandwagon. It's just not something for me. I've had a hard time, especially with quarterbacks, but a hard time evaluating. And I've reached a point where if I'm not seeing what I think I'm like if I can't watch every film they have, or like if I can't feel comfortable enough to give a take on what I'm seeing, I just won't. And I've gone to more, the stats approach is what I absolutely love to do. I'm in the process of creating a player, database that'll allow me to start tracking players once they break out, using what Player Profiler does. Once they post a 50 QBR or higher, I'm taking that based off of ESPN's QBR, and then that's how I'm tracking them. And then I'll leave the film stuff, to my co-hosts like Chris and to other guys out there that watch a lot more film than I do. But the film I do watch, it's always down to what I call the swag factor. It's why I fell in love with Baker. It's why I fell in love with Gardner Minshew. In year one, I thought I loved the big, tall, big arm quarterbacks, and I will always own up to this mistake and why I fell in love with Deshaun Kaiser. It's helped me realize that I don't really want to try to track quarterbacks based on film. There's just so much to it beyond what we see that is so much harder to track. So wanted to throw that out there, get a gauge on, how we process quarterbacks, get a gauge on how a guy like Jesse, who's done this a lot longer than us, how he views and tracks the quarterback position. So this was an easy question for me to ask.
Sure. All right. Question 2. So I saw this and I can kind of relate to this, and I know Dan can too, Jesse. So I wanted to throw this out there and, give a chance to kind of take and give our listeners an under the covers look, if you will, to what goes on and the work that goes into, the content that gets put out a little bit. So I'm supposed to be the fun one. I'm going to start this off with a little bit of a not fun question, though. So you recently tweeted out about, essentially it was just needed to step back, hit reset. So just kind of talk about the grind that goes into putting out the quality of work that you put out, to doing the research that you do. And, what have you traditionally done to avoid burnout, and really what were the signs that you kind of needed to take a step back?
Oh, there's a lot of layers to that question, and it's a really good one. I'm really glad that you guys asked this. So I've been at this. This is my second off season this year in the industry, going into my third season in the fall. And I would say that the need for me to kind of step back and kind of hit the reset button came over the past probably 3 or 4 months. In-season grind is always, I'd say it's probably a little bit lighter for dynasty purposes, but when you're doing in-season grind and then you transition, a lot of people do transition into the draft as soon as, I started in December was probably when I started, kind of transitioning into draft mode. And I did that from 2018 to coming into last year as well. And for a lot of dynasty people and just football centric people, there is no off button. So we come out of the season, playoffs start, and you have, your DFS playoff formats on DraftKings and stuff for the playoffs. But a lot of the hardcore grinders are guys that are transitioning into the NFL draft and then into free agency and such. So, I would say for the most part, the kind of need for me to step back this year a little bit and take a little bit of time to reevaluate my process comes more from not necessarily burnout. I think it's very easy to overwork yourself, but I think burnout is probably more so when you are absolutely I'm trying to find the best words to use it, because I don't want to offend anybody that thinks that they're suffering from burnout or anything. But for the most part, I'm not suffering for burnout because I'm passionate about what I do. I absolutely love football.
It's when the passion dies and you don't think you can do it anymore. I'll say
it. Thank you. That is the perfect way to describe it, because that's what burnout is. There's not one day I don't wake up and not think about fantasy football. That's the first thing on my mind. I check my notifications on my phone, see what's popping on Twitter, see what's going on. What's Evan Silva tweeting? What's Matt Kelly up to? What is everyone else that I kind of communicate and interact with? What are these guys doing right now? What did they tweet? How can I draw some sort of inspiration or even better form of information from what a lot of these guys that I really enjoy, what are they doing? So, but for the most part, my choice to kind of step back and as you mentioned, if whoever's listening to this right now hasn't seen it or anything, I did post on my Twitter that I just was going to take a little bit of a break for probably the foreseeable future. I'm stepping back to reevaluate my process, because I have a lot of really great aspirations. I've really done a lot of great things that I want to do in this industry, and the things that I and the path that I kind of want to lay out for myself. And I need to take a step back and really just kind of assess what path is going to be the best, the little things daily that I need to do to kind of get there. And what does it look like? What does it look like to go full time in the industry? Because I'm definitely not full time. I'm working part time, treat it like a full time job, but so kind of that was my inspiration for to hit the reset button. And It's hard because it's like we're in the peak of dynasty right now. Rookie drafts are going to start rolling at the end of probably the beginning of May. It's a hard time to step back right now if you're in the dynasty game, or you talk a lot of, you rely on rookie content kind of the way that I do. But I think for the most part, you have to just be honest with yourself. If you're somebody that's just getting into this industry, or you just really love grinding fantasy in general, even if you don't do it for money, if you don't do it, if it's just a hobby, this kind of goes back to how much time and effort you're putting into this, and then make sure that you still love it at the end of the day. But if you are somebody that is going to look at this full time, or somebody that has aspirations to dip your toes in the fantasy industry water and stuff, really assess what you want to do here and how you want to do it, and kind of attack that, chip away at it every single day. But know when to step back, know when your time is, when you're starting to feel maybe a sense of that burn. Man, this is a job. This is something that I don't really want to do today. Every person's different. Know your limit. And like, dude, I'm not. If anybody's, I know you guys have followed my work. If there's anybody watching, listening that's followed my work, I try to get pretty in-depth studies done. I love deep diving on data. I love to do pretty big studies and stuff. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I never will be. I'm cool with that. I know that I'm not, and I'm horribly, horribly bad at math. Things that take people 30 seconds to figure out can take me an hour. I have to really go through it. So when I put out some of these deeper studies or these more thoughtful analytical articles, these are things that I've dumped hours into, man. And so like, to go with the talking about the grind that goes into putting out quality work, it is just that. It is a grind. There are times where I spend a week on one study, 2, 3, 4 weeks. I was, before I kind of hit the pause button, I was working on my analytical predictive model for wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks for this fantasy rookie class. And that had taken me probably well over a month and a half to 2 months to even get comfortable with putting any of that information out into the public. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking, 6 to 7 hours after I put my kids to bed, pick them up for school, from school, come home, do the dinner thing, play, dad, wife comes home from work, all that extra stuff that everybody else has, not just me. But then putting 6 hours in the middle of the night, slamming Bang Energy to get, this analytical model, trying, come to where I'm comfortable with it and stuff. Like, that's the grind that I think a lot of people, and not just me, I think a lot of people go through that to put out really good quality work in this space. You sacrifice a lot of time, you sacrifice sleep, you sacrifice a little bit of sanity, and you do it so that you can figure out hopefully what, maybe this rookie running back's points per game is going to look like in the near future. It seems redundant, but that's what a lot of us do so that we can just play the game of fantasy and have fun and talk to other guys like you guys on a podcast and sound smart, about numbers and fake football players and stuff, dude. So yeah, I hope that's a sufficient answer. It's definitely it takes a lot to pump out the quality of work. It takes a lot to even get on. Like, you guys sent me a show sheet that I'm looking at, and you guys say, it's only 12 questions, but like, it's thought that goes into this. You have to wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I got to do X, Y, and Z. And then on top of that, I got to circle back and I got to make this show sheet for Jesse Reeves because we have him coming on tonight. It takes effort to do this stuff. No matter what way you slice it, you're carving out time to talk about these fake football players with a guy who probably lives across the country from you in the middle of a pandemic. Like, it's all work. No matter what you're doing, dude, it's all work, and it's the grind, dude. That's what it takes to put this stuff out, whether you do it for fun, whether you do it for money, no matter what way you slice it, man. And that alone, if you're still listening to my rant right now, culminate everything I just said. And if that's not enough to make you feel a little bit tired, dude, then maybe you're just built for this. Maybe you need to get here as fast as possible, dude. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I needed to hit the reset button. But yeah, that's the kind of effort that it takes to putting into this. And sometimes it can weigh on you a little bit, and I kind of felt that a little bit, and I wanted to take a step back, reevaluate my process and come back better. It's more so for everybody else that consumes my content. I'm not a half-ass kind of guy. I will not put out shit work. I refuse to do that. That's not the type of person I am. So I knew I needed to take a step back and just kind of breathe, play some Call of Duty, just hang
That's
out with
fair.
the family, and that's pretty much where I'm at. So
the way to do it. And we have consistently reinvented ourselves. Dan mentioned it earlier. This is our 4th off season. It's right at 3 years of doing this. We have not missed a week of content, missed a week of shows. This is episode 289 of this podcast. And
that's fucking fantastic, dude. That's effort. That's what the grind is, man.
I remember when we hit episode 10 and thought that, oh man, this is, when we started this thing, even it was, we're gonna be lucky if we make it a season.
And I can't wait to tell that story for real though. How we actually were 6 o'clock in the morning. Do you guys want to start a podcast?
Yeah, sure.
About fantasy football? Yeah, sure. All right, we're gonna talk craft beer and fantasy football. We're gonna record in 3 weeks. Good luck.
Yep, that's how we did it. And it was in 3 weeks, and we crushed rookie film that year, and we were like, oh man, we're gonna grow huge, and we were doing it for fun. We thought it'd be a good idea, but we weren't necessarily doing it for fun right out of the gate. We were like, yeah, we're gonna crush this, and we're gonna be the fantasy footballers, and no, we weren't.
Yeah.
So we tried to do 5 days a week content, and by the end of that first full season, we were just crushed. And I'll say it a million times over, I hate in season. I really do. I hate the in season work, and I don't hate it because I don't enjoy the analytics of it or anything. I hate it because it's not the fun part. It's the same shit every week. It's here's your starts, here's your sits. We're going to be right about 60% of this. Have fun, And
it's redundant.
It is redundant. In season is redundant. You don't get to do the fun stuff in season, and that's what kind of killed us. And then year 2, we scaled it back and stopped doing the YouTube shorts and started doing the full show on YouTube, and still kept it at 3 episodes a week in season, and scaling up from 1 in the off season. So I mean, our step back was never we're missing time in the off season. It was we're just going to do fewer shows, and then we'll ramp it back up. So and I'll be completely honest, the amount of time we've put into this outside of the show has kind of started to slow, and part of that is just that we've gotten more efficient at it, I think. The other part of it is, though, that we kind of realized that we were doing the same crap 90 other podcasts are doing, and it's just a different place for a different take. So we started looking at what can we do to be a little bit different? How can we twist this? We lost our third co-host, who really took a lot of the work from it. So Dan and I jumped into last season as just the two of us, like, okay, let's make it through it. And then we reinvented ourselves again to kind of doing this more interview format, conversation based. We'll look at the statistics. We're not going to build the show around statistics, but we'll have them in the back pocket if we need them to give a take. And let's just have some fun, which is what we intended for it to be in the first place. And we just got super away from that, and it kind of led to burnout. But when it comes to reinventing yourself, reanalyzing how we do things, we both talked about how we kind of changed how we were going after rookies, and taking what we've learned in previous seasons and applying it to make sure that we're giving accurate takes, or as accurate as you possibly can be, because really it's all just a bunch of educated guesses anyway. That's something that we're super familiar with, and super familiar with the grind of it and how you can start to feel that burnout set in. When you do, you need to step back and kind of reinvent or reevaluate how you're doing things, or change it up, and just how can I keep this fresh and how can I keep this fun?
Yeah, you hit the nail. You hit the nail.
I hit the head on the nail.
Hit the head on the nail.
Hit the head on the nail.
We're going to go back to I'll see it when I believe it. Yeah, we're going to go back to episode 5 or 6 when I threw that.
I'll
see
gem out see it when I believe it. Thank you, Acid.
Yeah, so it's been a pleasure to kind of keep figuring out what will drive us to keep doing this, and to keep putting out the content that keeps bringing people along. We don't drive we don't bring in the biggest numbers, but I feel like we have a very dedicated listener base. There's not many podcasts out there that want to talk as in depth with craft beer. We just spent an almost 3-hour episode with Chris Allen, who's a home brewer, on top of doing a fantasy football
geeked out so
life,
hard.
and we like, that's our shit. We want to put out what we love to do, and if we can drive you in here to bring it in, that's what we want. Instead of driving to make a profit, which we haven't. We want to drive in to bring
We've made money
the guys
once.
that actually want. What's that? Yeah,
we've made money once. And by the way, we sell merch. I'm wearing one of the shirts. But
yes, I'm wearing our Fantasy Expo from last year's shirt. So
nice.
But
so you're right, and we kind of stopped caring about numbers after season 2. I think it was we peaked kind of in season 2, season 3, where it was all right. Yeah, we hit the 10,000 download in a month mark, and we did all this crap we never thought we'd be able to do. Okay, prove that. Now let's just go back to making it fun.
Yeah, I thought that was a great question, by the way.
Thank you.
Sometimes asking the fun questions are great, but I think asking these and getting a true behind the scenes look, like, to those out there that want to start doing a podcast, this is kind of what it takes. And it, like, if you don't at some point within that first year think, fuck, maybe I've done too much, I don't think you've gone hard enough, because it's always the first couple years.
Just don't think that. The one advice I have is that you're not even on fantasy football. If you're going to do it on anything, just don't forget to make it fun for you, because that's in the end what it's all about. All right, cool. We've gone off on that diatribe for a bit. We're well on our way to 2 hours. Let's go ahead and get into question 3. Dan, you got another football question for Jesse, and right in the wheelhouse here.
Yeah, so like I said, so this show is rookie quarterbacks and rookie running backs. We're in the heart of it right now. We're 2.5 weeks away. We know right now this is a 2 QB race. It feels like it's a 2 QB race. It's, Burrow, Tua, Burrow. There's guys behind there. There's a lot of content that talks about these guys, but this is our rookie QB episode. So I would feel like doing our listeners a disservice if we didn't talk about it. Jesse, I'm pretty sure I know that you're a Tua guy. I am very much torn between who I want to take with my 101, in a super flex league. But Chris and I are also big fans of Jalen Hurts. Justin Herbert, I think, had a lot more athletic upside than what we all have thought, which is what I actually like about him the most. So let's talk about these top guys. Who do you like, and who do you have questions on?
Yeah, so kind of how you alluded to, it's definitely Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa that are the top of this class. To answer your question with the 101 and rookie Superflex, I'm probably not taking either one of these guys right now, to be completely honest. Joe Burrow, Tua, incredible talents, but give me Jonathan Taylor or CeeDee Lamb. Those are probably who I'm going to invest in early. Joe Burrow is probably the cleanest prospect in terms of hopefully walking into a conducive situation in Cincinnati. Talking a little bit about what he did last year. I mean, and throughout college, he was a guy who started at Ohio State, got beat out by Dwayne Haskins, kind of shifted his focus down to LSU. Had a wishy-washy 2018 season, but just lit things up as soon as I can't remember his name right now. Joe Brady. Yep. Joe Brady got to LSU. They transitioned the entire offensive scheme, and he just lit up last year. We're talking probably the most prolific college quarterback season of all time. And with that undefeated championship all the way through the college football playoffs, just an absolute it was a spectacle, if you ask me. I mean, anytime you want to turn on the TV, you want to see Joe Burrow and LSU. Getting down to a little bit of the nitty-gritty in terms of statistics, 77.6 career completion percentage over his span in college. He averaged about 13.8 rush attempts per game, so he definitely has some rushing upside there. He averaged about nine yards per attempt, average yards per pass attempt, I should say, which is what his general throw on a per play basis was garnering. So good efficiency numbers there. What I would say for the most part, though, is he's kind of a little bit lower in terms of completion percentage over expected, which is a Josh Hermsmeyer stat. If anybody who's watching this or listening doesn't know Josh Hermsmeyer, go check out his website, airyards.com. Check out his Twitter. I think it's at Frisco Josh. He has a really, really good metric, like I mentioned, completion percentage over expected, and it's not widely released to the public at all. He houses this data, at least for college quarterbacks and stuff. He houses it himself, so it's very hard to get your hands on. I'm pretty sure I haven't run into anybody that has it, but very good predictive stat in terms of fantasy points. And Joe Burrow, I think he grades out about the third or fourth best quarterback in this class when you look at his completion percentage over expected. Good accuracy. He's not horrible, but what he kind of projects out to be, he's definitely, I would probably say, based on the draft capital and the situation. I mean, he is going to go, we'll say hypothetically right now, because he is going to go to a situation that's getting guys, I cannot remember the name of that, the tackle that Cincinnati drafted. The guy, he tore his pec, I believe. Is either his pec or he tore his ACL or something in camp. Can't remember his name. They're also, I think they should be getting center Billy Price. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name if there's any Bengals fans. Anyways, I know they're getting some key guys back on the offensive line. They have a young running back in Joe Mixon. AJ Green just got tagged. They have Tyler Boyd. It's not like Joe Burrow is walking into Miami. It's not like Joe Burrow is walking into a place that has no weapons for him to thrive. He's going to be okay. So if you are targeting a quarterback, he's probably the guy to target early in your Superflex league. Transitioning over to Tua, I don't even know where to start with this guy. He is my ultimate man crush at the quarterback position. If it wasn't for the 2 ankle surgeries last offseason and the hip injury this year, he would probably be my 101 because he is completely healthy, and he's probably one of the best quarterbacks that I've seen in a really long time. 71.4% completion percentage, average yard per pass attempt 12.9, which is much higher than Joe Burrow's, which I mentioned was 9 there. He does not have too much rushing upside, but as we kind of mentioned in my process when we were talking about the quarterback process in general, for what I look for, Tua is a guy who has wheels. He can shake the pocket, and he does have rushing upside. He just wasn't asked to do it very much at Alabama, but even more so, when you watch Tua play, everything that makes him an incredible quarterback is when you watch him move his feet in the pocket, he's able to transition from option 1, 2, and 3, and potentially 4, depending on the personnel scheme. He's able to transition from player to player on his reads, and he does it very efficiently with great footwork. And when he needs to move the pocket, he shakes the pocket. Very, very good at being able to feel pressure, bounce out of the pocket, but he also keeps his eyes upfield. He's constantly looking to move the ball through the air. He's not a Jalen Hurts who, when under duress and pressure, he just kind of tucks the ball and rolls out of the pocket and tries to get upfield as much as possible. So Tua, he does have the legs. He's got the rushing upside. He just doesn't use it in terms of the way that we think about mobile quarterbacks. When we hear the word mobile, we think about Lamar Jackson. We think about Deshaun Watson, who you really dial up these quarterback reads or these RPOs, and you want to get them a couple yards on the ground and stuff. Tua can do that. He just is more apt to being able to shake the pocket and move the ball through the air. And, I can rant on and on about how great Tua is in that respect. But yeah, those are kind of your 2 top guys right now. And that third for me, I know a lot of people will say that it's Justin Herbert, but that third guy right there for me is Jalen Hurts.
There it is.
Jalen Hurts is definitely, and he has very, very underrated accuracy. If we just look at it from a pretty much redundant completion percentage standpoint, 69.7, averages 12.17 average yards per pass attempt. He also averaged 24.8 rush attempts per game. A lot of that came from his time with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. We saw it all last year. This is a guy who, when he feels, like I said, when he feels pressure, when he's looking to get outside of the pocket, he's not looking to throw the ball. He has some legit upside in terms of rushing. Went over 1,000 this year, passed for over 3,000, 4,000 total yards, I believe. Remembering off the top of my head. So you won't see his overall pass attempts and completions be as high as a guy like Joe Burrow or a guy, or he's probably in the wheelhouse. No, he's definitely not in the wheelhouse of a guy like Justin Herbert or even Jordan Love. He's going to be on the low end of that scale there. But if we look at, again, bouncing back to Josh Hermsmeyer's completion percentage over expected, Jalen Hurts actually had the highest completion percentage over expected for all quarterbacks from back to 2015. He was top 5. He was top 5 of all quarterbacks back to 2015. If I remember, could go a little bit further back in terms of years of data. But for Jalen Hurts to have higher completion percentages than a lot of these guys that are coming out, like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, coming from that same system and stuff, for him to have that, and then over a lot of other guys too that have come out over the past 5-6 years, that's huge. And I think it comes down to the fact that when he was at Alabama, they didn't really ask him to do a whole lot of down the field throws. He was more of a game manager at Alabama, got beat out by Tua. We saw that happen. But the kid can dot. When he does it, his completions and pass attempts, like I mentioned earlier, are going to be down. But the completion percentage and the completion percentage over expected, pairing that with like average yards per pass attempt, really tells us that even if he's not throwing a lot, when he does, he's accurate, man. He's putting it on the mark. And that's what you want from a quarterback. When they are throwing it, you want them to be able to hit the mark. Joe Burrow had throughout his entire career, I believe, if my numbers are correct, and I'm looking at 598 pass attempts, that could be last year's. I don't have it differentiated right here, but 598 pass attempts and 77.6% completion percentage. That's very, very high for a guy who had that many pass attempts. Very, very high, which tells us that he's putting the ball where it needs to be. When you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, he's not throwing it a lot, but has similar statistics in terms of completion percentage and completion percentage over expected. That is a really, really big red flag for me. Not red flag, that's a green flag for me. Let's switch that color over to a green flag, because that tells me that when he is throwing, he is completing passes and he's on the mark, and that's what you want to see from your quarterback. And then you pair in that rushing upside. It's going to be about what team kind of wants to get him in their scheme. Are they going to draft Jalen Hurts on day 2? Or are they going to draft him on day 3? Day 2 would probably signal that he is going to go to a team that can potentially use his skill set to be a potential franchise quarterback. I don't know if that's what I see personally. I see the upside. I see the upside there. If a team is willing to really, really build around him, give him the right weapons, barring what he walks into in terms of the system. But I think a lot of the way the NFL is going to value his skill set is going to be where they draft him. If he's going to a team like if he's going to go to a team, which I think he actually probably really fits here, if he goes to the Ravens, he's not going to be a starting quarterback, at least for the next 2 to 3 years before they decide to let him go. And for me, that means that it's all going to come down to where he's drafted. But he's my quarterback 3 right now, and Justin Herbert is my quarterback 4. I don't really have too much of anything to say about him. He's kind of a guy that was kind of miscast in his offense. I think they had him on a West Coast scheme, throwing short dink and dunk kind of outs and stuff. Didn't really give him the chance to sling the rock a lot down the field with that big cannon on they say he has. But it doesn't really measure up to a lot of these top quarterbacks in terms of completion percentage and other things. So those are the 2 guys. A guy that I have questions on is Jordan Love. I really don't think. And excuse the echo. If you guys hear an echo, my AirPods just went out. So sorry about that. For anybody
you're good.
That's
I
listening,
don't. You're good.
Okay. And for the most part, Jordan Love is a guy that's got massive question marks for me. Had one really, really stellar season where he had over 30 touchdowns, very minimal interceptions. Then he kind of reversed that this past year. And had I know he had over 15 interceptions off the top of my head, but and only 20 touchdowns, give or take.
17 picks.
17 picks and 20 touchdowns, correct? 2021?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, 2017 picks, 61.9 completion percentage, and a 7.2 yards per attempt.
Yes, exactly. And for me, I'm a little bit higher on the 7.2 yards per pass attempt. A little bit higher on the average yards per pass attempts, like throughout his career, 8.61. Either way, looking at his profile is just very incomplete. And I've seen him make really, really nice throws on tape, but he's an inconsistent prospect who relies on kind of uber athleticism and a guy who can roll out of the pocket, make, a lot of people compare what he does to Patrick Mahomes-esque style of play. For everything that we've seen from Jordan Love, it just doesn't amount to the expectation for him. And I really think that that's a guy you'll probably be able to get him late second, early third in your dynasty rookie drafts. And he should be properly valued there. But that's kind of the guy right there. When we talk about Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, and then if you want to throw it, it's probably Jordan Love and Jake Fromm that kind of trickle down after that. And honestly, anything after Justin Herbert, and even Justin Herbert's probably a big liability depending on where he goes.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that ranking system goes for me, and kind of how I feel about those top 2 to 3 guys.
Yeah, there's like for me, there's just like this class just doesn't have the depth. I guess the last two have had. Like I don't get excited about this outside of even Tua and Burrow, which have their question marks in their own right, and whether or not they were potentially propped up by the just the sheer amount of playmakers on their offense. Burrow had the down junior year, came back and obviously put together the greatest college season we've ever seen. Tua, with his consistencies, but there's health concerns. I love Hurts, and for those of you out there, and I know Hopper will contest to this, we've had a journey with Jalen Hurts. So Hurts was a part of obviously that 2017 is when we started doing our podcast, watching a Darius Stewart. We all hated Jalen Hurts. Like maybe it was because of the mishap, the miscats, within that offense, and with Alabama wanting to use him more, as a game manager. Plus, you can see the rawness in what Hurts was, and then you see him progress into what he became with Lincoln Riley with Oklahoma, and how we both are pounding the table for him. He's my number one target in my super flex drafts that I have. A guy that'll probably go, in the second round. There's rumors of him. I want to say there's some guys in the draft community, the big higher ups with the Mel Kiper guys, that potentially see him as a day one pick. He projects a lot to what Lamar Jackson was, raw skill, raw passing skills with high rushing ability. When it comes to fantasy, we love a guy that can do both. So I'm not as in tune with the quarterback class as I have been with, with some years past, but that's why I love Jalen Hurts so much.
Yeah, and really you're not missing a whole lot in my opinion either. I agree with the top 3 of Burrow, Tagovailoa, and Hurts. As most listeners know, Herbert would be 4, and then behind that you get into some guys like Anthony Gordon, who's gotten some love as a maybe, and you've gotten guys like Jacob Eason, who Matt Hicks talked about a couple weeks ago. I like Bryce Perkins as what I thought was a snub, that at least a combine snub anyway, that if he gets any draft capital at all, it could be like a late round Gardner Minshew type. There's been some love for Cole McDonald is the other one that I think that's gotten some love, but all those guys I just mentioned behind Justin Herbert are really just they're kind of question marks. They're guys you're taking late rookie draft, and Superflex is a dart throw to throw on a practice squad, and maybe they'll Gardner Minshew it, but knowing that they're that's the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
So that was me name dropping a bunch of things. All right, on to the next question. By the way, we're on question 4. So Mike Evans recently put out a tweet that said, "I ain't know hummus was that damn good." So is hummus that damn good? And given your personal opinions on hummus, and feel free to throw in flavors there if you want to, make a fantasy football comparison.
Okay, I don't know if I have a fantasy comparison. I'll try, but I would say hummus is that damn good.
I love
Mr. Mike
hummus.
Evans. Oh, dude, spicy hummus with pita chips. That's the go-to right there. Phenomenal snack, a game day snack, one that I love to get myself for Sundays, man. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I would say if the hummus fantasy football comparison would would probably be for me. You know what? I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna overextend.
Overextend.
I'm trying to think of somebody that's like super underrated that nobody like really knows about, and that's like super good, and like when they try it, you can't really like get off it. I don't know. Maybe like
Jamison Crowder.
Yeah,
I was gonna say he was a guy on my radar, but I'm just thinking, I'm projecting how like the Jets are gonna
Michael Gallup.
they're gonna take CeeDee Lamb. They're gonna take CeeDee Lamb at 11, and then all of our Jamison Crowder love's gonna go to shit. Either way, but yeah, Jamison Crowder is probably the perfect answer there. Maybe Chris Herndon too. We'll throw
Well, we're definitely on the Herndon train.
The Jets win at something for once.
Yeah, dude.
Hummus comparisons. That's what the Jets are good for.
Yeah.
All right, for me, I gotta agree. Hummus generally is that damn good. I'm more of a garlic hummus type on some Triscuit. I've also been known to do the dessert type of hummus with the dark chocolate on some graham crackers, which is also pretty good. And if I were gonna draw a comparison, I just threw it out there. I'm gonna say it's Michael Gallup because there was not a ton of hummus hype out there in the world. There wasn't a type of hummus hype out there when it was a rookie. But you try it once and you see it once and you're kind of in love with it and can't really break off of it. So, yep, I'm with you. I agree with Mike Evans. Hummus is that damn good when you find the flavor that you like.
Yeah, it's all about the jalapeno hummus for me. Like, I love hummus, so I'm sticking with the Jamison Crowder. There's probably more out there. Potentially Randall Cobb this year if the Texans don't go out and draft another maybe top flight receiver with that second round pick they got. But yeah, that's my hummus take.
Okay. Awesome. Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Hummus.
Yeah.
All right, you got the next question at 5.
Yeah, this one will go quick. This is to kind of hone in your Chargers love. It's been mentioned throughout the show that you are a diehard Chargers fan, for better or for worse, throughout the Phillip Rivers years. You had mentioned, I think previously either on Twitter or on the show, or probably both, that your fandom with the Chargers has only been with Phillip Rivers as their quarterback. Now we get to see that transition. Is it Tyrod for this year? Who knows? But if you're picking at pick 6, I did screw this up. I thought they were picking at 11. If you're picking at pick 6, who do you think the Chargers are going to take at that pick? Like,
all right. Well, you said we're gonna go quick. You said we're gonna go quick through this, and now I'm obligated to make this a 15-minute segment.
That's fine.
Because it's my team.
That's fine.
and I just feel I feel obligated to do this right now.
We're fine with that.
Let's start from the top down, okay? Dean Spanos. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, in all seriousness, I think it's probably the biggest wild card question right now is the two teams sitting at 5 and 6, and they both need quarterbacks. They both opted not to go out and seek potential franchise quarterbacks in free agency, or even try to fill a need with even just a guy that could be considered a backup, even if they do draft the quarterback. Neither Miami or LA really went out and put effort into that position at all, except for LA did try and pursue Tom Brady, which thank goodness Tom Brady saved us from ourselves.
Right.
That was probably the best case scenario. But after that, so I think it's going to be a big wild card. And I think that this draft situation with, coronavirus and everything going 100% virtual, I think that's going to play a factor in where the Chargers kind of land. My heart tells me that this team knows that Tom Telesco, the GM, and Anthony Lynn both know that they are on very, very thin ice. Tom Telesco has been the GM since 2013. He's had some incredible draft picks. He's had some bust draft picks. He's a guy that's known to build through the draft. So for me, I really, really think but he's also a conservative guy too, which makes me hard pressed to say that they're gonna stick and pick whoever's at 6. Whatever guy between Burrow, Tua, and Herbert don't get picked at 6 is going to be the pick at 6. But part of me also says that they know that, number one, they're moving into a new stadium this year and they're going to share it with the Rams. They're in a new market after 52 years that doesn't accept them, that is now dealing with a Lakers team that is potentially going to go to the finals if they ever have one this year.
Yep.
And next year, they'll probably go to the finals too. A Rams team that just went to the Super Bowl. It just years and decades of greatness in sports in LA. The Chargers have to do something, and they have to do it fast to get butts in those seats and make a splash. And that leads me to believe that they are going to potentially sell the farm for this year and potentially next year to go up and grab Tua. So that's that. It's either Tua or Herbert are going to be the guys, but my heart tells me that it's going to be Tua. Circumstances outside of just this draft scenario lead me to believe that they're going to make somewhat of a splash, and they're going to be the surprise X factor in this draft that's going to kind of shake things up.
I almost think they have to. Like you laid out the whole foundation of it. New team, or not a team, but new city. A lot of history within that city. A lot of failed football teams. So they come from San Diego, which the running joke of they always have the that they're the away team when they're home because there's always more away fans there. But I think you're right. I think they will do whatever they can to move up to take Tua. There's a part of me that thinks that Cincinnati won't take Burrow there, even though we all know they will because it's Cincinnati and they're almost a new Cleveland. So yeah, like. I agree with you there, though. They're going to probably try to make a move up and take Tua.
And
two or three.
And I said, yeah, I think the first number that you said 2. I think the absolute best case scenario is I think 3 isn't a viable option because Miami has enough firepower that if they do love Tua, they're going to go up to 2 and grab it. I think for me, and the fact is that if Miami wants to go up and get Tua, they're going to have him. They have enough draft capital this year and next year that we're kind of at their mercy. But I think there's a scenario to which you strike a deal with Washington before the draft. If it's an on the clock thing and pressure is high and teams, it's either going to be very good or very bad. They're going to get into a bidding war within on draft day, or if the Chargers are smart, they are executing these potential moves right now, kind of on the phone with Washington and Detroit, seeing what they can do. And I think the most viable option is you get up to number 2. Because if Cincinnati does love Tua and they pass on Burrow falls right into your lap, and that's not a consolation prize. That's a top 2 quarterback pick right there. Yeah. For me, I'm not as high on him as Tua, but I think he still has a great talent in this league. He's going to have a great future in this league. So getting up to 2 has to be the option there. And I'm perfectly comfortable giving away a couple firsts for it this year, next year, not 2 years down the road, but this year and next year's first, I'm comfortable. Give him 37. Give him another third from next year, maybe a player. And I don't know if Washington says no to that, and they can still go and get their guy, I would hypothetically speaking. So yeah, a lot of factors though, like I said, both wild cards, but I think that the Chargers are definitely forced to make this move to do something. They're going to have to do something. So
sure. I have nothing to add to that. All right. March 31st. Cried watching A Star Is Born and have decided it's the greatest love story of our generation. So, round table here, and we're going to start with Dan.
Oh, God.
Make a case for the 101 love story of all time.
Oh, man. I thought for a split second about this. We're going to go with one of my favorite underrated movies. Okay. Nick and Nora's Playlist. I love it. It's probably not. If we had more time to think about it, I'm sure there's better answers out there. But I just absolutely love that movie. Just the fact that Michael Cera, it's just who he is, and it's probably not right, but it's the one I can think of off the top of my head. So that's what I'm going with. We're gonna go with Nick and Nora's Playlist.
Good answer.
All right, I gotta go with P.S. I Love You.
That's hey, dude, that's a tearjerker.
It is.
I
It
hear
is.
ya.
It
I
is
hear. I just
a
watched that recently. Yeah, that's a good one.
tearjerker. It has heartbreak. It has from the grave stuff. It has recovery. Everything you could want in a love story when you just feel like a good cry, and TLC is not available or whatever. Not TLC. That's the Learning Channel. Love stories aren't on TLC. Lifetime.
There you go.
Is not available. It came out a little while ago, but you got burly men with accents. You've got, again, just from the grave. You've got tragedy. You've got happy endings, and just everything you could possibly want in a love story.
I cannot argue with that. And you pretty much just quoted my 101 from a tweet that I put out. So that's the 101, dude. A Star is Born is a phenomenal tale of just true love blossoming in the most unsuspecting places. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, and it just kind of flourishes into this real life thing, and then tragedy strikes, and it's hard. It's one of those stories that I think was, you probably, being serious, it's one of the better love stories that was portrayed in kind of a real, like, raw, emotional way. So I thought it was really good. The writing was great, acting was great. That was made Lady Gaga, when they cast that. So yeah, that's the best love story. And I'm happy. I'll throw this out there. I'm happy that neither one of you defaulted to The Notebook, because I would have probably just had to have left.
No, even though our former co-host wrote that.
Yes. His last name is Spark. His last name is
okay,
actually
understood.
Sparks.
Well,
Understood.
it's Sparks and Sparks, but yeah, first name's Nick,
I know,
so
still.
it's close.
It's close enough.
But anyway, yeah, no, we're not basic.
No, we're not.
We have taste. All right, let's
I
go.
mean, we try to sound smart in the love story game.
Right, just like the fantasy game.
Yeah, right?
Beer review.
I just realized, because that's an older drop, the volume in beer review is so low, it almost sounds like I'm putting in a drop for peer reviews. Anyway, Dan,
Where we judge people.
we're each other.
Yeah, or each other. So I'm drinking just for a soft reminder. This is Little Beaver's Pretty Fly. It's an New England style IPA with white chocolate added to it. It is pretty much a milkshake IPA. It's super sweet up front and sweet throughout. It's got subtle chocolate to it. It's not so much heavy. That's what a white chocolate is supposed to be, though. It's basically just a sweet bomb. So it's almost like drinking just a traditional milkshake with with the lactose or milk sugar with added vanilla to it. It doesn't have the same, to me, doesn't have the same thicker body that you would get from a traditional milkshake, where it's just a super hot bomb on top of adding milk sugar or top of adding vanilla to it. It is a tad bit thinner, so it does drink a little bit easier. I've actually held off trying to, save up to this point. I'm probably going to grab a new beer in the middle of one of these questions, and because that's what we do here at Beer for Fantasy Football. But yeah, that's my take on Pretty Fly from Little Beaver.
Yep, we run out in shifts. So I was drinking all the golden tickets from Pipeworks. It was basically a porter with chocolate malts and cocoa nibs. Chocolate malts definitely come out in this. You do get a very, very heavy kind of bitter dark chocolate taste, which is basically what you're going to get out of cocoa nibs and chocolate malt. Overall, you do have kind of a light roasty, nutty, a little bit sweeter background that you would get with a porter. Overall, it's just a very, very solid beer. It doesn't really do anything that special. The chocolate flavor is a little bit more prominent than in other things, but overall, it's just a really, really solid porter, which is not something I say a whole heck of a lot, because I think that porters are kind of like, I don't know, stout lights that I don't necessarily like as much most of the time. So, but yeah, overall, good job, Pipeworks. It is one of my one of the better Pipeworks beers that I've had. So, And it had been sitting for a bit too, so it's not the most rushed. But
That's fair. I mean,
yeah. I'm
it's a porter.
cutting through so much of my alcohol backlog in this quarantine. Gonna have to have a major.
I've actually drank through a
restocking.
lot of it. I actually have to keep buying new beer. I actually got these as samples, so it works out perfectly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do a major restocking whenever this thing's over. All right, question 7. Dan, go ahead. I'm gonna grab a new beer while you ask it.
All right, so this is going to be a lot like question 1. This is going to be our thought process, our evaluation process for running backs. What do you look for when you're evaluating running backs, and what makes you fall in love with them, and what also makes you pause for concern when you're watching these guys?
Yeah, so to put it simply, the best predictor for running backs in general is draft capital. So if you're evaluating them pre-draft, you kind of have to develop a really good sense of what you like personally. That's why I really like this question for the most part. So when I'm evaluating running backs, I personally latch on to pass catching upside.
Yep.
So a guy, especially in today's NFL, where we see guys like Christian McCaffrey being used as true dual threats in both the running and the passing game, and guys of Alvin Kamara as well. We see a lot of these top 5 running backs have loads and loads of pass catching upside. So that's kind of where I draw a lot of intrigue. Guys like J.K. Dobbins, 3 seasons with over 20 receptions, average 1.7 per game. And his rushing or his receiving yards market share to follow with that is probably one of the highest of this entire class. Outside of a guy like DeAndre Swift, Keyshawn Vaughn, J.K. Dobbins is right there at 19.4% as his best receiving yards market share. And he averaged a really high percentage of rush attempts as well. So he's got that true dual threat ability. His yards per team pass attempt is a little bit low in terms of efficiency, but the opportunity was there, the volume was there, and he was able to garner himself a lot of passing volume there for Ohio State. And that's even with a guy like Mike Weber eating into a lot of his touches in 2018 as well. So for me, like I said, pass catching upside is something that is really, really intriguing to me. I have a kind of a really arbitrary benchmark I like to see, and this is mostly because guys that you will see that have reached this benchmark tend to have good receiving ability, and they've gotten the opportunity in college. It's a 20 reception benchmark. So yep. I like to look at guys that have that 20 that can hit 20 receptions in a season. That tells me, okay, they have that. Not only do they receive that opportunity in the passing game, but they did something with it. And so J.K. Dobbins in this class is the guy that is the only guy that has three seasons above 20 receptions. So for me, yeah, that's kind of where that's the one thing that I really, really look for in terms of intrigue. But what really makes me fall in love or kind of turns me off to them, I kind of tackle this one in kind of the same vein, is that I like running backs who have the ability to kind of create on their own. And what I mean by that is I don't want a guy who is having to rely on the ecosystem of his offensive line for everything. Yep. So a guy like Cam Akers, if anybody's familiar with Graham Barfield's yards created, which is something that I really like to weight in my statistical models a fair amount, is Cam Akers had a horrible offensive line, but still put up really, really decent numbers in terms of rushing and receiving and overall total statistics. Despite having that bad offensive line, which tells us that I think he grades out as the highest player in Grant Barfield's yards created as well, which tells us that he creates things beyond the line of scrimmage or beyond what's being blocked for him. And that translates very well in the NFL and in fantasy. We see a lot of guys that have high percentage juke rates, which is a statistic you guys can find over at playerprofiler.com. Juke rate and yards created as well. When we pair these things and we throw them on an axis together, we see that they correlate very highly with yards created and with fantasy points as well. So running backs who have the ability to create beyond what's being blocked for them is a very big thing too. Pair that with receiving upside, and you guys you fall into guys that are Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara-esque, and that's where you find true fantasy upside. for a lot of these guys. So when we talk about a guy like Jonathan Taylor, he just had like a massive workload, but we only saw one season of him being able to have that over 20 reception mark, which is fine. I'm not knocking him for it. We saw that he can do it. That's great. That's good enough for me. Let's hope that his game, that the team that drafts him is asking him to catch more passes. Otherwise, we're probably looking at a little bit of a cat as we did with Josh Jacobs. I know that was kind of a concern coming in last year, and then this year in that Oakland, or in the what was then Oakland Raiders offense, they did not ask him to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield, and that kind of capped his ability to get to that top 5 spot, and even into the upper echelon of quarterbacks, or excuse me, of running backs in fantasy. So receiving upside, receiving usage, opportunity are things that translate very well to today's NFL, and those are things that I'm looking for from my running backs in these rookie classes and beyond.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on the on the pass catching upside. Like in today's NFL, like if you're not built like AJ Dillon, or if you're not built like Derrick Henry, you got to show us something. And it's always good to see one season, because it's the what if. Like, okay, if he gets put on, if he gets put into an offense, can he produce? We see that in college with the guy like Jonathan Taylor. We see that with the Georgia back, with DeAndre Swift was the pass catching back his first 2 seasons. Then he gets put into the focal light then he gets put into
limelight.
Limelight, and he becomes just more of a traditional runner. As they ask some of the other 5-star recruit freshmen to be kind of their their pseudo pass catchers. For me, for sure, is at least when I watch a lot of film, it's contact balance. I love seeing running backs who can at least bounce off of 1, 2, 3, 4 guys. Whether that actually translates to actual production has been really hit or miss. Our draft crush last year was 2 years ago, or no, it was last year. Was John Kelly?
Year.
What's that?
It was last year.
Yeah, last year. A guy like John Kelly out of Tennessee. We absolutely loved him. Obviously, the NFL felt differently. Then you get this year with the very minimal film that I've watched. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I'm not super high on, but he shows that ridiculously good contact through balance because of his short stature. He's 5'7". That low gravity, hard to bring down. Almost that Maurice Jones through Ray Rice light to him. So those are guys that I always, tend to gravitate towards, and it's whether or not that actually meets for fantasy production is on near say at this point, but those are some things that I love to watch on film.
Yeah, for me on film, I'm looking for the ability to not take negative plays. So I want to see some vision. I want to see some ability to create. This is the same stuff I look for when they get to the NFL too. So I want to see that juke rate. I want to see that you can create a little bit when you just don't have a line blocking for you. Looking at you, J.K. Dobbins. And I want to see the ability to, like Dan said, to break tackles, sustain through contact. In the case of AJ Dillon, I want to see you push piles, which he does. I basically just don't want to see you go down easy and take negative plays and have a little bit of an ability to create for yourself. Yes, in today's NFL, you need to be able to catch the football, generally speaking. We have seen Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs get away with not doing that a little bit. Derrick Henry's another one, get away with not doing that. But you have to land in a very specific type of offense in order for that to work out from a productivity standpoint. And it's always going to be a little bit rocky there. So, yeah, for me, I just kind of want to see the ability to, sustain through contact, create, and I think that the other thing I like to see is I want to see you be able to change directions without coming to a complete stop. I want to see some of that agility. And it doesn't have to be true agility. You don't have to have the sharpest cuts. You can angle away from tackles or whatever. Just, show the vision and the ability to change direction and the general ability to create is what I'm looking for. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Oh, I do love Keyshawn Vaughn.
All right. I think that covers that question.
Yeah.
Throwing it in the way back machine here real quick before we get back to running backs. So Andy Holloway of the Fantasy Footballers recently put out a tweet saying, "Fantasy football nostalgia has proven to release endorphins." Let's be nostalgic for a second. One quarterback, one running back, one wide receiver, one tight end from the Wayback Machine.
Okay, what is a Wayback Machine? How way back are we talking here?
Let's say outside of the last 5 years, since the NFL moves quick.
Oh, dude, what? Oh man, you're cuffing my hands behind my back, man. I haven't been alive that long to know that. No, I'm just kidding. I would say I'm probably gonna go with quarterback from the way back, so not last 5 years. I'm gonna say this is a hard question because I don't want to be super. I don't want to be like a try hard and go and say like every. If you couldn't tell, I put no thought into this question before we hopped onto this at all. How about you guys go before me? Let's do that.
All right, I'll go ahead and go because Dan's off getting a beer. So, we'll start with tight end Brent Selleck. That's an easy one for me. Brent Selleck in the Eagles typically had some decent productivity as a receiver. Before Zach Ertz really took that over, and he was a mainstay on my team. So I got to go Brent Selleck there. Looking at running backs, Michael Turner is a guy that I was always a big fan of having around, just because his price never really went through the roof, and he was a big banger of a back that gave you some nice floor. Wide receiver gets a little more tough for me. I make light of Brian Hartline all the time because he was like a mod. He was an Adam Humphries back in the day. That you could plug in on a bye week or whatever and typically get some productivity out of. But I'm not gonna go that route. I'm gonna throw it basic there and go with Wes Welker, the original PPR monster, if you will, and special shout out to Antonio Holmes, I guess, because I had him on a lot of teams too. And then looking at quarterback, this one's a little harder because they don't change necessarily as frequently. So I'm going to take a different approach to this and be a guy and go for a guy that's kind of, might still be floating around the league, but, maybe has fallen off a little bit. But Tyrod Taylor, I don't know if he's been in the league for 5 years. Is a guy that kind of kind of the original, not the original rushing floor, but at least from when I was playing was a late round quarterback you could get with the rushing floor. So, that's what I'm going with anyway. So, Tyrod Taylor, Michael Turner, just because I drew a blank on quarterbacks. Michael Turner, Wes Welker with a shout out to Santonio Holmes, and Brent Selleck would be what I'd go there.
Okay, that's way better than still what I'm about to come up with. But I'm gonna draw a little bit just from my prime. These were guys that like when I was first getting into fantasy were just kind of like the guys to own. Like you definitely wanted to have them on your team. So I'm going with. So we'll start with. Let's go with quarterback. See, it's hard because I think a lot of the guys that when I you say 5 years, it's hard for me because I got to dig deep because I think a lot of the guys when I first started getting into fantasy are still playing at the position. So we'll try and I'm going to tackle that one in a minute. I know for running back, I'm going Jamal Charles. This was a guy that was just an absolute producer. You wanted him on your team. This was the guy, had some injury issues, but had just a couple of seasons of just absolute elite productivity. And he was just a guy you wanted to draft early. At wide receiver, I'm gonna go with prime like 2012, 2013, and 14 Dez Bryant. Oh. So Dez Bryant, throw the X up, just an absolute mammoth of a man, just the guy you prototypical wide receiver. He was in that top 5 discussion, one of the best wide receivers in the game at the time. For tight end, I'm gonna go with. I really, really think that he was probably a little bit, and this is the homer in me. I'm always going to go with Antonio Gates. I'm always going to go with Antonio Gates. He's like a top 5. I debated on either him or Tony Gonzalez because even when I was first getting into fantasy, I know Tony Gonzalez was like at the end of his, his career and stuff. But Yeah, Antonio Gates. I got to be the homer with him, and I have to go with Antonio Gates. Was consistently a top 12 tight end. I think he was probably top 5 in terms of overall points per game at least a couple times in his career. He's somebody that you definitely could probably get in the later rounds as well. So a bargain, if you will. And then quarterback, I'm probably just going to be a major scrub here, and I'm just going to go with the guy that was throwing Dez passes. We'll go with Tony Romo, man. I know he's in the booth now. He had a couple seasons that were really good back in that 2012 and 2012, 2014 ish time range when I first started to get into fantasy. I know Tony Romo, he was definitely not heralded as he wasn't Peyton Manning, didn't average over 25, 20 points per game, but he's a guy that got it done for you, consistently in that top 10 and somebody that you kind of run that stack with Dez Bryant and kind of hope that you dominate that week. But yeah, I'll go with those guys. Those are kind of guys that were in the prime of in my time frame. So
yep.
I'll rely on them.
Speaking of nostalgia, before I kick it over to Dan, I want to change my quarterback because I feel like I kind of cheaped out there with Tyrod. Why did it just leave me again? Damn it. Probably because my mind's so fixated on Brandon Stokely right now, and how did I not say Brandon Stokely as my wide receiver?
No, that's a name we don't hear very often. Brandon Stokely.
Yeah, I was gonna throw Stokely out there because that is another guy that I like to have around. But go ahead, Dan. I'll see if the quarterback comes back to me.
All right, so we'll start. We'll just go down the line from quarterback through tight end. It's been nice to go last.
Carson Palmer. I don't know why I couldn't think of Carson Palmer.
Okay,
Carson
Palmer.
There you go. Fair. All right, now go ahead, Dan.
So we're gonna go with, because I've been playing fantasy since 2003. I want to say, if not longer. So I used to play with my dad way back in the day. I used to be the one that has to go through the newspapers to check box scores when I was in third grade and help him draft this team. So, but for quarterback, it's the true. I won't say it's the first. Maybe it was the first Konami code. Oh, Michael Vick.
Yeah.
Vick with Atlanta. His one ridiculous year with Philadelphia. It's what kind of changed our perception of quarterback, even though it didn't really stick. It's more so, it's the true guy who can just get it done, both on the ground and through the air with his ridiculously arm strength and its ability to kind of, be an RB2 before what we saw with Lamar Jackson last year. So for sure, Michael Vick. I'm going to go with more so high profile names because I got to see these guys in their prime. But my running back is Clinton Portis. So Madden 03 was the first Madden game that I truly gravitated towards. And that was the first year they did online. That was the first year they did updated rosters. And Portis went from being the fourth best, running back in that game behind guys like Willis McGahee, or not Willis McGahee. It was William Green or whatever. And he became one of this super high profile name because of what he was able to do with Denver, after the Belandis Gary years and Terrell Davis and Mike Anderson. It became then Clinton Portis, and Portis was just a perennial beast until he got moved to Washington and injuries took over. But I have a soft spot for those mid 2000s running back. Obviously, the Daniel Tomlinson is up there too. He was, he holds a special heart. But I figured you would take that, Jesse, so I wanted to save that, even though you've already gone. For wide receiver, I'm going massive homer. It's Randy Moss without a doubt. Back in my early days of playing, it was I had to own Moss regardless of where he went. Yeah, I know he went to Oakland not too much longer after the 03-04 season. It was always Moss. Moss was my dude. And then I guess for tight end, it's going to be I want to say Tony G, but that just kind of feels like a cop out, and there is no true love of it. But Bubba Franks for the Packers, because it was the first time I heard all he does is catch touchdowns. That was with Green Bay, back with Favre. He had 1 year of doing it too. For some reason, Bubba Franks is always the guy that I think of first when someone says about tight ends. All he does is catch touchdowns. He was Jordan Thomas before we got Jordan Thomas. So those are mine. Michael Vick, Clinton Portis, Randy Moss, and out of left field, Bubba Franks.
All right. So hopefully that took some of you down the nostalgia train and released some endorphins or get your juices flowing there a little bit. As far Greg Jennings is another one that jumps out to me. Musin Muhammad. So just
God.
throwing it back there with Bernard Berrien. Back in the
TJ,
Bear
who's your
Shit
mama?
Yeah, who's Manzada, Chad Ochocinco, my all-time favorite. Anyway, Dan, back to you. We got some running backs to talk about here as we get towards the end of the show.
Yeah, so let's. So I know that the running back the running back prospects get all the talk, but that's not going to fucking change here because this is a QB and running back rookie episode. So let's talk top 10. Jesse, who are your top 10 rookie running backs?
Oh man, I think it's pretty easy to go through the top 4 or 5 right now. My top 10 right now, before draft capital hits anything, we're going Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 5. Then I'm gonna kind of shift down. I'm gonna go Zach Moss at 6. I'm gonna go Keyshawn Vaughn at 7. Then I'm gonna have, and this is where we start to get a little dicey after 7. So I really like Keyshawn Vaughn. I'm gonna go AJ Dillon because he just went stupid at the combine. That guy's an athletic freak. I think somebody's gonna give him an opportunity. So we'll give AJ Dillon at 8, and then Eno Benjamin at 9. And this is a guy that's kind of starting to get a little bit of love. Is Darrington Evans at Appalachian State? I'm gonna throw him in the top 10 right there. Because I don't want to talk about him not being in the top 10 in a few seconds here, but I'm going to throw him in the top 10 because I think he's got some really good tangibles that teams are really going to enjoy. I think he is going to grade out very, very well comparative to some of his peers, and I think that that's pretty much where I round out my top 10 there. Let me know if I forgot anybody glaring because I'm pretty sure that's a pretty stout top 10 though.
That's pretty much what most people's top 10. You can kind of rotate your 8, 9, and 10 throughout, but the top 7 is pretty much chalk for most people.
Yeah. It's a chalky class.
Yeah. On the whiteboard.
Or the chalkboard.
Or the chalkboard.
On the chalkboard. Yeah, on the
chalkboard, which makes more sense than whiteboard.
It is. And I will say, though, I will give a slight disclaimer. I've said it before on a couple other podcasts. I think J.K. Dobbins has the highest ceiling of any running back in this class. Athleticism, receiving upside. He is an athlete that plays the running back position that has not found that's the true nirvana inside of the running back position.
All right, Jesse, it's been good having you on the show. Great talk.
When he finds that, no, you're not getting me off that easy. We've been here for over an hour and a half now.
Wait, whoa, this isn't that type of show.
I'm just kidding. It's
ain't getting anybody off here.
I really, really think that that he does have the highest ceiling of any running back in this class over Jonathan Taylor, over Cam Akers, over Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's just a guy that does it all. He's the most well-rounded in terms of receiving and rushing. I think that he's got a really, really bright future. So he is without draft capital. After draft capital will probably change a little bit, but I think J.K. Dobbins, he's my secret 101, or he's my secret RB1 in this class. Love him more than I really like any of these other guys. But Jonathan Taylor, it's hard to argue against the production. He's likely going to be the running back 1 off the board when the draft kicks off. So it's hard to
hearing Swift for that spot too, though. I've been hearing a lot of Swift.
But you hear nothing about Dobbins. I don't know. Yeah. And the fact that he wasn't able to go at the combine in terms of 40 time, he's really relying on that pro day. That didn't come. We have, as far as I know, I don't have any solidified, confirmed measurables on him in terms of athletic testing. So
stacked up by
that's
a 4-year-old
at
one point.
It's going to be.
I think he got stuffed at the line by a group of 5-year-olds at one point.
Stop. No, he didn't. Not that I recall. Not that I recall. No, but I think that's going to dampen his chances of getting selected early. So this could be a moot point. But yeah, high ceiling there for him. But it's hard to argue with Jonathan Taylor at 1.
By the way, I just so I'm a little. How would you describe it, Dan? When
you hate a player,
when I decide I don't like somebody,
you don't. Yeah, you tend to double down on your hatred. I mean, you'll come through eventually, potentially.
I came around on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, you did.
I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I'll adjust my take when I'm wrong. But no, the thing with Dobbins is that I don't hate him, and I think that he has a role. I just don't see the every down thing from what I saw. Those things I said I look for. He has the explosiveness for sure. I didn't see a lot of creation there, and I felt like he did go down a little too easy, and I have some serious questions about the between the tackles ability. But wouldn't be the first time I've been wrong, so don't take that like I'm disrespecting your point. I'm just very steadfast in my takes. So
I enjoy listening to everyone's takes, whether they're wrong or right in the long run. He's definitely somebody that I saw create a lot for himself in terms of yards too. And as I mentioned before, Graham Barfield's yards created, which is not, this is not some godly metric that tells all about the running back position, because it is a hard position to predict. But I think he grades out as the number 2 running back in this class in that respect, in terms of being able to create beyond.
And I'm not sure what goes into that metric, but I could definitely see him grading well there, because when he does, he's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's he's like I mentioned, he is an athlete who has not found nuance in the running back position.
Okay, and you did say that, and I do agree with that take. There are some, and that's probably the best way to put my take, is that there are some nuances that I like to see in more developed prospects that I think are missing with him, even though he has all the athletic ability in the world. That's probably the best way I can put it.
And to your point too, the one thing that I can say though is, if he is as good as he is, and he has yet to find that nuance,
he could be really good.
I think that's where that ceiling comes in. Is he might not come in as the best running back in this class, but he can damn sure come out of it as the best selection in this class if he's given the nurturing and the right coaching staff and scheme around him to be able to kind of use what he already has and develop what he doesn't. And what he doesn't clearly didn't hinder him from being a great running back in college. So I don't see it slowing him down in the NFL. I think that if he can latch onto a little bit of learning and kind of creep his way onto that trajectory upwards and ascend, I think if he can learn more in the NFL, he's going to be a real force. But I get it. It's not, a lot of people want to go with a safer option in Jonathan Taylor too. He's a safe guy.
Yeah, well, and I've got Taylor and Swift and Hilaire even all up above Dobbins. Dobbins is my 4, but again, I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's all about how players get evaluated, and I am the type that evaluates floor a little bit higher than I evaluate, potential upside. And people thought Mike Weber was going to be good coming out of Ohio State as well. So, no, I think he'll have way more draft capital and be better than Weber was. But I think that's just a difference in evaluation, especially with at least 3 of those 4 guys I mentioned being very, very close anyway. It's all going to come down to how you evaluate players individually. And I'll admit and buy into exactly what you said. I lean a little bit safer, and I know Dan is like you and leans a little bit more towards ceiling, and I'll agree. He's got a super high ceiling if he can figure out the nuances.
Which is funny because he's my 4th too. So, I mean, this top class is so close, I think, in terms of where they should all be ranked. And this is me speaking, because I'm not in the group that has Clyde Edwards-Helaire within their, within that top tier. To me, it is Taylor, Swift, Akers, and Dobbins, and then it's a tier break. Mainly because I don't know if Helaire has the body size and the true I know Matt Kelly, spoke upon this. There's no true comps for Helaire. He's 5'7", 208. So he's got the BMI size for it, but he's 5'7". He's short. and like he had a difficult time beating out Nick Burchett or whatever the fuck his name was in 2018. Yeah, Brissett in 2018. Like he couldn't overtake him in a bad offense. So it's the product. Like it's hilarious the product of this ridiculously good offense. But he also put up 55 receptions. So
we've talked on the show about the Joe Brady effect on that offense too.
Oh yeah, for sure we have.
Nobody didn't know that LSU was going to come at you and try to run it down your throat up until this past season, and then you got another dimension to that offense. And I think you're going to have a lot more dimension in an NFL offense than what LSU had up until this previous year.
Yeah, so for me,
Brady's in the NFL.
Exactly. Like for me, I actually have Keyshawn Vaughn above Hilaire until you can bake in draft capital and Hilaire will be drafted before Vaughn. If Vaughn goes day 3, I do agree with a lot of the takes that says with that Vaughn could go day 3. I think there's a very good chance that Vaughn does go day 2. The problem is
good. I want people to fall off of him for a reason.
Yeah.
For reasons.
Yeah. Is that we've had at least 2 very good running back draft classes that have come out. Arguably 2017 has been insane for us. And there's not a lot of great landing spots in terms of immediate production.
That's true.
So there's going to be these guys that are going to land into what we saw with a guy like Nick Chubb in Cleveland with Carlos Hyde, Miles Sanders last year for Jordan Howard there. There's going to be landing spots that are going to test what we perceive on these running backs in terms of, can the talent outweigh their situation?
Right. Because outside of the Rams and
AJ
Bucks,
Brown.
Yeah, outside of the Rams, Bucks, and maybe the Bills, you don't have anything that
and Dolphins.
In the Dolphins. Well, they brought in Jordan
Howard there.
It's the same thing he just said with Miles Sanders. So, and I say the Bills a little tongue in cheek with Singletary because I see him as what Eckler has been at least up until maybe this season. A guy that is just hyper efficient on 10 to 12 carries a game and gets it done. So, I think that basically you got the Rams and the Bucks as your prime landing spots, and other than that, you're splitting carries.
I think you're also, and this might be the homer in me. This might be somebody just looking at my own situation, and I think number one, the contract itself speaks for where the Chargers value Eckler and what they value.
Yep.
He's a 1B. He's a guy that you don't need to give 20, or you're not going to give over 20 touches a game to. You're going to give him 14, let's say 12 to 15 touches a game in both the, probably heavily incorporated in the pass game.
Sure.
And he's going to be a guy that can create on his own. And I see the Chargers as a really big landing spot for one of these top tier running backs, especially if they decide to go ahead and bite on like a guy like Tua early.
Yeah.
Even Justin Herbert, give him that help. And I could see one of these running backs if the Chargers don't trade 37 away. I could see one of these running backs being the pick at 37, depending on what they're. They feel very comfortable with a guy like Trey Pipkins. I think left tackle is out of. I think that's going to be out of character for them to take in the second round. I could definitely see them snagging a wide receiver or running back, whichever is best available there. And I think there's a strong chance too that you don't see any running back go in the first round. Even Jonathan Taylor, if he's there at 37. They just transitioned off of Wisconsin running back. They might dip right back to the well and draft Taylor and have that 1A, 1B with him and Eckler. I could see a scenario like that play out. So I would add the Chargers into the mix for a place where I am definitely getting whatever running back kind of lands there.
Yep, and they're kind of that tier 2 of landing spots. Like I said the Bills tongue in cheek. The Rams and the Bucks are the places I could see somebody landing and getting the, shall we say, lion's share of the carries. There are places like the Chargers, the Bills, the Lions come to mind, the Chiefs come to mind, where there's still a very, very good chunk of touches to be had. But because of the presence of guys like Devin Singletary, Damian Williams, guys that have proven that they can produce, Singletary, Williams, Eckler, things like that, to where you're not going to land there and get necessarily, 70-80% of the touches. You're going to get maybe 50 to 60, but you're going to be in a split backfield situation. So just don't want anybody to take that as I was saying places like the Chargers and the Bills or the the Lions or places like that don't have value. The Bucks and the Rams are the two I could see is where you're probably going to get the largest share of carries without anybody really, chomping away at that necessarily. Because Eckler's going to get his. Singletary's going to get his up in Buffalo. You assume Kerryon Johnson's going to be healthy in Detroit. Damian Williams is going to get his in Kansas City. So that's the only point I was making. I don't want so you're absolutely right on the Chargers. I just didn't want anybody to take that as some of those areas where you're going to land up in split backfields are bad landing spots because they're not. You just don't have the opportunity really at being a true bell cow there because you have guys there that are also going to be that 1B in demand carries that have proven to be hyper efficient.
So we all can agree on that Zach Moss is the most decisive. Decisive? Is that the right word for it?
Divisive?
Yeah, divisive.
You were close.
Back prospect, and it's I don't do words well here. Especially when I've been drinking. I'm on beer 3. I'm on about 40 ounces plus right at this point.
So
Dan's a bit drunk. We'll just we gotta hit about the one running back that I think as a community as a whole, Zach Moss is very, you either love him or you hate him. And you mentioned on Chris Allen's show, Jesse, that you think that the Chargers could target a guy like Zach Moss. What are your quick thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's a guy that's just really good between the tackles, and I think that's probably what the Chargers would be looking to add if they do that in the later rounds. Like I mentioned, if they don't trade away 37, they could be looking for a more bell cow style running back. But if Zach Moss is the pick, I think he kind of fits what Anthony Lynn wants him to do. He's a guy that's he's not gonna get east to west for you. That's something you leave up to Eckler. But he's a guy that can hit hit anywhere A, B, or C gap, and he's gonna go. He's going to attempt to hit the second level, break tackles. That's his bread and butter. He's definitely not a guy that's shifty. He's a one cut at best kind of guy. But when he gets to that next level, and this guy's got contact balance, I'm telling you, this guy will truck you, and then he will gain 5 to 8 more yards on top of you. That's if he hasn't already shaken off another defender or two. You probably won't be the first. But he's a guy that's got really good contact balance, gets north to south quick, and I think he'd probably be an ideal complement to a guy like Austin Eckler in that scheme. You give him the lion's share of the rushing attempts. You let Austin Eckler be kind of a change of pace kind of guy, but I think he fits that role for any team too. He's not. Yep. He's definitely. I don't think he's like a fringe 3-down back. Like he's got it, and he's got receiving upside as well. But it's like you just see it. He's just not good enough to be a great running back. Kind of how Melvin Gordon was. So wouldn't really put that past the Chargers. Go ahead and take him. I love Melvin Gordon, by the way. Melvin, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I love you.
Melvin, if you're listening to this,
if you're listening to this, please give us a follow.
Right.
Yeah, dude, for sure. No, I love Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon is a really, really good running back, but I think the difference between great elite running back talents is the ability to create on their own and to have that diversified skill set and to be able to be versatile in both the pass and run game. And Zach Moss checks one of those boxes, but he is definitely not somebody that I'm hinging the entire offense on or looking to give 400 touches to in a season or anything like that. So,
For sure.
But he would be a great compliment to a guy like Eckler and somebody that you probably wouldn't be too concerned with taking away from Eckler at all.
Yeah.
Singletary.
AJ
Go
Dillon.
to Buffalo, please.
AJ Dillon's another guy I see in that same regard that doesn't really get outside of the tackles too much, and that could really complement a guy like Devin Singletary. I mentioned Detroit for him, and complimenting a Kerryon Johnson, who's kind of proven you're not going to be able to give him 250 to 300 touches despite the talent, or even potentially Tampa Bay. So I think Moss is kind of like AJ Dillon light in that sense. And I say light because Dillon's heavier and more athletic. Yeah. All right. Shifting gears a little bit to free agency. So came through, changed a lot. So Jesse, I won't bore our fans with the same take Stan and I have given about 4 times over, but I want to hear your take. What's one landing spot you loved coming out of free agency? What's one you didn't like from a dynasty perspective?
I'm going to be nimble and quick on this one because this one's just it's one player and it affects both sides. So for me, the one landing spot that I love is Emmanuel Sanders to New Orleans.
Yes.
And I love the upside in a more pass-heavy offense. Drew Brees has still got it. He's slinging the rock up there. A much more explosive offense. We saw Ted Ginn have some usable weeks. We've been kind of waiting for Traquan Smith to kind of break out and be that 2 behind Michael Thomas, but unfortunately it hasn't happened. And that's where I hate the landing spot because I love Traquan Smith. I have Traquan Smith all over my dynasty rosters, and this kind of puts a damper on it. Again, so that's the love-hate landing spot right there. Love Emmanuel Sanders. He's got legit 4.4 speed. He's going to take the top off some defenses, but it kind of puts, everybody else on the team at the wide receiver position, Traquan being included there, kind of on the back burner for at least a season or two. So, but I am excited for Emmanuel Sanders, man. We saw him put up some really good weeks early on last year in a much more run heavy offense. And down the stretch wasn't really, he had that one really, really big game against New Orleans, but had some really big weeks, but wasn't really used to his full potential, or at least that we thought when he was traded there. We didn't really, we thought we'd probably get a little bit more, San Francisco's looking for that one wide receiver. Debo wasn't enough in the draft. They got to get that alpha receiver. And the reality of that situation is they were just not as much of a pass heavy offense as you would have wanted. And he's not a guy that is going to rely on a ton of efficiency in terms of his style of play and the fact that he's 33 as well. Like if you want him to produce, you're going to have to give him some volume. So I think the added passing volume in New Orleans is going to be better for him. And I think that he's going to, like I said, a much more explosive offense, but it does hurt Traquan Smith. So I have that's the reason I hate it. So.
All right. I've already gone into mine. So just a quick hitter, just in case Jesse takes exception to this a little bit. My hate was DeAndre Hopkins it wasn't free agency, it was a trade, but same time frame. DeAndre Hopkins to the Cardinals. Not because I hate it for Kyler or I hate it for the offense, but I hate it for Hopkins because I think his days as that elite type of wide receiver, at least in an offense with a lot of targets to give right now, especially next year even, is a little bit, the upside's a little bit capped. And on the surface, just what comes to mind is a love. I like Emmanuel Sanders to New Orleans a lot. I think Gurley in Atlanta too. When you've taken Coleman and Freeman out of the equation there, and Ito Smith is the nearest competition, at least as we're recording this today, is an opportunity for him to have a rebound and a bounce back and prove that the knees are still good. So, and it's an offense that I think can utilize some of those talents.
Dead air. I like it. Next
Mic
question.
Drop. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, right. All right. So last, rookie question here. Let's just quick hit on the running backs that didn't make your top 10. Just like, who are some guys that you and we as listeners out there should be excited about in our upcoming rookie drafts?
Okay, so guys that I didn't name in my top 10 that I think have lots of upside based on pretty much what I've mentioned for the past couple portions of talking about running backs. Versatility, being able to catch the football, and consistent production there. I'll give you guys 3. So I really like Anthony McFarland out of Maryland.
Yep.
I really, really like Joshua Kelly. And then I really, really like what was that last one I just had? I really, really like why did I just lose him right now? I'm totally spacing on his name.
Is he from Memphis?
If you want me to say, Antonio Gibson,
that's my dude.
I mean,
he'll get there one day.
I think Antonio Gibson definitely has a lot of upside. It'll be about the draft capital there, but no, I was actually going to roll with it was Joshua Kelly, Anthony McFarland, and I personally, I mean, you could definitely put Gibson in there. I'm gonna go with a little bit of oh man, why am I spacing on? Let's go with JJ Taylor. I think JJ Taylor has some decent upside to him too. These are, like I said, outside of the top 10 and even into that like 8, 9, 10 range, you're just shooting darts on upside in this class. Nobody really pops out as like, oh my God, this guy is a late round sleeper. You have to get him. Like he's the, most slept on kind of guy. He's the unsung hero. These guys are just guys who have moderate production, who have some decent versatility in terms of being able to catch the ball. But if to be honest with you, I probably should have thrown Gibson in there. I'm waiting for a full designation on where he's going to land and the situation that he's going to land too. Yep. I'm going to hit a little bit of homerism here again. Another guy that I think could add a layer of versatility to the Chargers in a late round situation. In that 4th and 5th round, they should be trying to get a guy like Gibson that can kind of play that speed athlete, that guy that adds just layers and layers and layers of versatility onto that offense. Jet sweeps, being able to throw the wildcat out there, everything. That's kind of what I look for. So, but yeah, those are 3 guys that I really, really think that you can get a couple of pieces of upside and walk away from your rookie drafts with some of those guys like that.
Sure.
I love it.
I also love the stall tactics while you were trying to come up with your name again. I thought that was pretty impressive. It was smooth. I don't mean to call you out like that, but it was pretty good.
It was either okay. So I was looking at it and I was like, why did I have this guy? Because I have 2 of them. Joshua Kelly and Anthony McFarland are actually really 2 solid sleepers outside your top 10. Anybody that's doing like anything deep on running backs probably has those guys pinned as some guys you want to spend those 3rds and 4ths on. But that 4th one, I had a guy, I'm looking through my data set right now. I was like, okay, I like those 2. And then I was like, okay, I had a 3rd. And then I'm like, wait a second, I don't have a 3rd. What is like another? And I already said I had 3. I was like, damn it, Jesse, you're shooting yourself in the foot here. But honestly, I think JJ Taylor is probably an underwhelming guy in terms of overall profile. But he's a guy that does have upside as well, too. There's a couple guys like him sprinkled throughout this class that you spend your late round picks on, and they might fall into a situation where a guy gets hurt and they become a guy that walks into a little bit of added volume. So,
for sure. All right. Question 12, last one. We made it. Dan and I will also spare these, just so we don't have to come up with a new one every episode. Boldest prediction for the 2020 fantasy football season.
Okay, boldest prediction, and I'm going to lay into it again here. The homerism. I'm going to tell you that Hunter Henry is going to be the tight end 1 next season. And I say that as somebody who owns a lot of Hunter Henry, as somebody that loves the Chargers. But taking my fandom aside, last year was just absolutely abysmal when we look at the Chargers. Scoring output as well as them in the red zone. If Phillip Rivers didn't get them to the red zone, or he did get them to the red zone, he threw a pick in the red zone. And that's where Hunter Henry is supposed to really be thriving. Only logged about 12 games this year. We did see him miss some. And we saw early on in the season, 3 double-digit weeks, week 1 had a double-digit fantasy week, then came back in week 6 against Pittsburgh and just lit it up, had 30 fantasy points, was the tight end 1. Now, I think that personally when, and especially if it's going to be a guy like Tua, maybe even a little bit of Justin Herbert, any rookie quarterback that's going to walk into this situation is going to have a plethora of options, but none of them will be more pivotal to red zone production than a guy like Hunter Henry. And he's not even just a red zone threat. He's a guy that legitimately will run you up the seam and take you to the next level and drag a nickel defender, and he will take it over the top. He's a guy that's fairly athletic, and he's got great hands. So for me, I really think that we didn't see him come out of that ACL tear from 2018 and transition into 2019 the way that we wanted to. I think a lot of that had to do with him, again, missing some games, but also the entire culmination of the offense not really functioning the way that we thought. Still ended as a top 10 tight end, averaged 12.3 fantasy points per game. But I think that we can get him a little bit more involved down the stretch, and I think he's going to be a big weapon, especially in the red zone. I think you're going to see touchdowns kind of spike upwards. And another fun fact too is among tight ends, he had 7 deep targets, which is targets over 20 or more yards, which ranked 11th among tight ends. So not being just relegated to like an inline blocker coming off the shed on a crash block and then just kind of running up the seam on yards after the catch. He's being legitly targeted as a receiving weapon. I just don't think we saw that come to fruition this past season. And I'm very excited to see if he's going to be a legit weapon this year.
Yeah, I think that Hunter Henry has always had the potential to be a legit weapon. I'm a big fan of Hunter Henry. I thought that before Austin Hooper was the next guy to break into the top 4 of that elite tier, I always thought it was Hunter Henry, and then injuries and misfortune have just kind of piled up for him, and always seems to be something that gets in the way of that happen. But the talent is absolutely not in question, and I could absolutely see that being the case. And I'll probably draft him as such, to be completely honest, and live and die by that once again. So, all right, that's all we got. Thank you guys for tuning in. We had another 2-hour plus episode, even after we talked about how it wasn't going to be 2 hours plus coming in at the beginning. So, thank you guys for tuning in for these. They're a lot of fun. It's a lot of good discussion. Thank you to Jesse for hopping on and sharing his wisdom with us, and chatting and just kind of helping everybody to escape from what's going on in the world. Jesse, any further thoughts? Tell the people one more time where they can find you on Twitter. Promote anything you got to promote if anybody's still listening.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you guys for having me on, letting me your platform, and letting me come on and talk some football with you guys. Crazy times we live in right now, so any time I can provide a little bit of an escape, whether it be through fantasy, real life discussion, or whatever, I'm definitely excited to do it. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to come on and to just shoot the shit with you guys. Again, you guys can find me on Twitter at Jesse Reeves FF. Written work at Roto Underworld Player Profiler. Podcast The Draft Dialogue on Apple Podcasts, or whatever, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're not sick of me by then, I got a lot of cool stuff coming out soon that you guys, I shouldn't say soon. I'm working on a lot of cool stuff that will be coming out in the future, and just kind of taking it day by day and stuff. So just keep up. Yeah. If you enjoy the conversation, or, you catch any of my work or anything, that's where you guys can find me. Come check the stuff out.
Absolutely. All right, awesome. We are at Beerfield Fantasy, at Beerfield FF on Twitter, at Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube, which I don't think I said in the intro. Like, subscribe, hit the notification icon. We record everything live there. Hop in, ask questions like Dylan. Thank you to the group that is normally there and asking questions and is there with us every week, especially in the fantasy season. It keeps everything fun for us. So, but yeah, like, subscribe there. That way you get notified when we do record. Audio pods, it says a million times. I'm going to say it again. Audio pods typically drop on Wednesdays throughout the off season, but we could record at any point between, the weekend before that up until later on that Wednesday. So, be sure to like and subscribe if you want to get in the mix. We have t-shirts for sale. DM Dan if you're interested in those. I am wearing the gray one. We also have these in red and Dolphins aqua, if you will. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's. I don't know if I said that already. At 3 BFF with 2 F's. Dan, send us out.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Later.
We just did that backwards.
We probably.
No, we definitely did. It's usually the other way around.
That's fine. I'm on beer 3.